Hello, I'm Michael Kaywood, the director of Devils, Angels and Dating, and I've done something a little bit unusual here in that I'm going to play the film at a third speed in order to give me some more time to talk about, do the director's commentary for you. So here we are in the opening shot. Now, this opening shot actually starts on just the stars on a black background. So the scene was originally shorter, and I had to kind of extend it out so that I could do more time of it panning down with just the stars. And that presented some interesting challenges with the pixie dust tools that Ishkander made. But down below, what you've got then is a little mini scene with the characters doing what they do over by the sphere, but I wanted to be far enough away that you couldn't quite see what was happening, and wide enough that you could get an idea of the environment that they were in. Then the next shot here actually cuts in way closer so that you're almost too close to be able to see what's happening. And we move in on the only piece of 2D animation that we have actually, that was done by William Wright. And I'd hoped to do more 2D animation, but there weren't really many opportunities to squeeze it in. But here what happened was essentially we had the idea of doing this shadowy previous devil who gets killed off at the beginning of the film. Now the idea is to establish that Death is capable of killing off characters so that there's a sense of fear for the rest of the film. And unfortunately, because he was only on screen for a really short period of time, we just couldn't afford to make another character. So I decided that what we'd do is have it only in shadow form. And the easiest thing to do with that was to actually animate it in 2D. So I did the character designs for this extra character, but only as a silhouette. And then I storyboarded that out, gave it to William, who ran with it and did a great job. And then it all got composited into the 3D scene, and I was quite proud of the results in the end, actually. So anyway, this is the first time we're getting a look at Death and Cupid. Now, what I wanted to do here was keep Death a little bit mysterious still. So we know she's done something bad to another character, but we don't really know who she is or what's happening yet. All we've established is that she carries the scythe and she kills off characters. So there is the suggestion that she is Death. And we can see that Cupid here is trying to show off a lot. And what happens next is that the original devil is replaced by a new one. And this was one of the scenes that I animated. And I had to sort of get across the point that he was very timid and cute and not familiar with his surroundings. And this is where Cupid gets to sort of take advantage of him and show off, which he's about to do in a moment. But first, what I wanted to establish was that he kind of fancies Death, because she's a female character, and he's sort of showing off, but being a bit stupid about it. He getting rid of the halo was one way of also showing that he's a bit blasé about his responsibilities up there, and he doesn't really care how things are done. So, but it also doubles up as an opportunity to kind of threaten the new devil and establish his authority in this otherworldly existence. So what we've got here is essentially he's showing off and trying to impress Death, and he thinks he's about to get lucky. She's coming towards him. He's the main man as far as the afterlife world is concerned, and he thinks he's in with a shot with Death. And so he's about to overstep his bounds a little bit here. Now this was a tricky area because what I wanted to do was play with the sexuality of the characters, but without getting too overt. I didn't want to take us into territory that was too lewd, so it was really kind of teasing and adult, and the idea was that adults would know what was happening, but it wasn't showing off too much. And what happens here is, of course, that Death puts him in his place and tells him off, and he's like, yeah, cool, you know. Which essentially has established the dominance of all the characters at this point. So Devil is sort of aware she's the boss, but Cupid is more dominant than him. And just now he starts to realize what he's getting himself into, and he's noticing that there are all these gravestones behind him. So he realizes that he's not the first one to come up here, and there have been plenty of previous devils who have seen their end before he arrived. So the next thing that's going to happen is that I'm going to establish here that about the peeps in the sphere. So what's about to happen is that the camera will pan out and reveal the sphere and its purpose to the audience. And in some ways, it would have been nice to have held on this for longer and given the audience a bit more of a chance to absorb everything that was going on, because there's a lot happening here. We've got the first sign of the second appearance of these sort of demonic hands, but these are the positive demonic hands as opposed to the negative ones. So these are the ones that do good things, and we'll see them again at the very end of the film. But for the most part, the demonic hands tend to be sort of evil-looking things. Now, what we're seeing here for the first time are the little peeps that come together as bubbles. And it all happens fairly quickly, actually, but it's sort of to establish that what's happening is that the characters are pairing up the peep characters, and this is a sort of a representation of what's happening down on Earth below. So we pan down through the clouds and take a good look at Earth below. Now this is something that went back and forth, and there was quite a lot of debate about exactly how to make this clear without costing us a lot of money. And it was a bit of a stretch to be saying we were going to look at the Earth and make it fit in with the style of the film, but we managed to pull it off and get the point across that there was a connection between what was happening in that sphere and what was happening down on Earth below, and that the peeps falling in love were making the humans fall in love. So anyway, with that all established, we get to spend a little bit more time with the characters and figure out what their role in this universe is. And so here we show Cupid doing his job for the first time. And you see that he connects up, he basically chooses peeps. They connect up, form bubbles around them, and then the bubbles pull together and we see them falling in love. Now there are these little holograms that sort of project out of them, and the idea of that is to sort of have a little bit of a techie feel about them, a bit like internet dating. It shows how compatible each of the characters are, and how likely they are to pair up. And for the first time here, we're sort of showing that Devil's got his hands on this wand, and he can see how Cupid's using the wand. But he sort of knows that the one that he's got is for a devil, and that it does bad things, and he doesn't want to be a bad devil. So he has to sit there and think to himself about what he wants to do in his role, and at this point he hasn't really figured out that death is perhaps on his side. But what we show the audience now is that Death has a different feeling about her role in this universe, and although she's cautious at first, what she wants to do really, what she would like to do is do more of the kind of work that Cupid does, ironically. But for now, she can't really see how she's going to do that, and it's not until she sees Devil and how different he is from the previous devils that she realizes that, you know, there might be a different way of approaching things. Anyway, he sees her laughing at his shenanigans and starts to wonder about how he can approach things as well. Now here's where we get into some of the flirtier shots. And at certain points I was concerned that exactly how far to go with this. And we sort of played around with the idea that she would play with her chest and her hair and things like that in order to get the point across that she was sort of flirting with him. Now we have no words to work with, so we had to do it all physical, and there were only certain things we could actually do to get the point across. So But I think we got the point across without going too crazy. This is the point then where the tension is building up between the characters. Devil's getting a bit nervous. He's threatened by Cupid, but his inner demon is kicking in, and he does what, a bit like a scorpion, is instinctive to him, and fires the evil wand into the sphere and does what all of his brethren before him have done. Now, this is really against his nature. Well, it's within his nature, but not really what he wants to be doing. It's sort of like the idea of a nice scorpion, who wants to help people, but it's instinctive within him to do nasty things. So here he breaks up all of these peep characters and essentially causes all the characters down on Earth, all the humans, to break up and unhappiness to ensue. So anyway, at this point he really regrets his actions. It was just instinctive and he didn't want to do it, and now he's worried, did Death see him do it? And of course she did. But Death isn't that way inclined, and as much as she doesn't like her job either of killing people off, she has to respect what her role in this universe is, and one of those things is that she chooses who does and doesn't do things up there in heaven. So one of the things so her next step is instinctively to look at him as just like all the other devils, and she wants to finish him off because she will spend as much time as she can trying to equalize what's going on down on Earth, but to keep people happy. And she'll only end people's lives when they are, when they're at the end of their lives, and as a natural course. So at this point, she wants to get rid of him because she thinks he's like all the others. But then she looks down and realizes that he's not, and he is a bit different. But at this point, it's kind of too late, and her wand is all charged up and ready to fire. So she points it away from him, trying not to hurt him, and inadvertently fires her death wand down towards Earth, which is possibly the worst thing she would have wanted to do at this given time. So all hell breaks loose at this point. The demon hands are flying around, all the peep characters are dying off, and this is the worst thing that can possibly happen to all the characters down on Earth. Even Cupid's a little bit miffed at this point, and typically he's kind of bored with his role and actually interested in something different happening. But at this point we show that the humans are dying off and the population has dropped way down, and she's very upset. So this is kind of essentially the lowest point. It seems everything has gone really badly now, and Devil reaches out to try and help her, but there's only really so much he can do. She doesn't really know him that well, and so what on earth can he do at this point? Of course, now the interesting thing is that Cupid realizes that for the first time in a long time, the tables have turned, and there's something he can do that he couldn't do before. With her turned away from, he can now attack her and take her wand. And with her wand, he has twice as much power as he had before. So he uses his tractor beam-like abilities with his wand to grab hold of the wand and steal it. And that turns the tables for the entire film. At this point, he doesn't really know what he can do with it, but he knows he has twice the power. And he uses that power against her, because essentially what he wanted all along at this point is her. So he fires his tractor beam towards her and tries to take her. Now, she resists and tries to pull away from his tractor beam, and things are looking pretty bad, and you're wondering what's he going to do with her, and she's kind of a bit skeeved out with him and wants to get away from him, and this is the point where Devil's thinking to himself, well, he's pretty timid, but maybe he can do something to help her out. But the last thing he wants to do is hurt anyone by using that evil wand again, but that is his strongest trump card. So the question is, what's he going to do? Is he going to take that risk that he might hurt people again, or is he going to lash out? Now, of course, Cupid realizes that he's got this wand, and so he's going to do everything in his power. So he summons those demon hands that Death previously had control over to put the peeps in harm's way, i.e. all the people down on Earth are now between Devil and what he wants. So now Devil's choice is, if he wants to save Death and be the hero, he has to hurt the very people he's already hurt before, and that he doesn't, necessarily want to hurt again. So the stakes are very high at this point, and he has to make a decision, and it's a tough one. So, it's essentially the whole film was designed to be a big setup so that we can see all these inner turmoils going on between these characters and see them making decisions. It was designed to be a film that would show off thinking within a character. I mean, that's one of the reasons I actually lost the legs from the characters, because it gave me the ability to focus entirely on what was going on in their faces, and the hands are really just there to help get across the point of what's going on inside their minds. So anyway, in the end, he makes the decision to do again what he didn't want to do before, but in order to save her. So he blasts through the sphere, which means that essentially whoever is left on Earth is again being split up. But, hopefully he's doing it for a good cause, and the battle takes place between the two characters. And it's really just a matter of wills at this point, who wants it more. And as we actually are going to show, the Devil wants it more. And he has to be tough and strong for the first time since he's appeared in the film. So this is essentially Devil's arc. And his character arc he's been presented with these obstacles, and he's failed once before, and now he's made the right choices in order to succeed this time. It has consequences, and he has to live with those consequences, but you can see that in due time he's actually going to be a good character who stands by Death and the peeps. So anyway, that's the end of the main action scene, and we sort of fade away down to later on, where I originally was toying with the idea of having Cupid appear again, only he'd swapped roles with the other two characters, and he was doing the bad things whilst they were doing the good things. I was finding it was getting a bit confusing for people, though. They were complaining that they didn't understand whether he was a good guy or a bad guy because he came back again at the end. And in my mind, he was never really a super bad guy, but it just made things clearer in order to, having him go away and not come back. So I decided to have a new ending, and it was a bit more of an upbeat ending where we get to have the characters clearly on the way towards falling in love with each other, but then presented with a new challenge, which is a baby Cupid. So it's a bit like a circle of life sort of thing, where at the beginning of the film we kill off a character and present his replacement, and then here what we do is we do exactly the same thing again. We kill off a character and present his replacement. So it's a positive. For every negative there's a positive, so that you get a sort of sense that there's a bit of a circle, and it's a nice bookend to the film. And again, we're presented though with the extra challenge of having another character to make, but fortunately it was pointed out that I could sort of adapt the Devil character to look a lot like the baby. So it was a bit of a cheap trick, but it worked for our purposes, and we got an extra character out of it. So essentially this is a 5-character film with only 3 characters being made. And that's it, really. I mean, what I'd love to do at this point is thank everybody that was involved. This was a long project, but it could have been a lot longer, and I think we were incredibly successful at making the film happen in a reasonable time scale. I think perhaps I would have liked to have kept production down to a couple of years, but in the end 3 years is a lot shorter than the 8 or 10 or 12 years I've heard of other people spending working on their own short films. So we did it in a pretty good, manageable period of time, and the goal was to get it out on a reasonable scale so that everyone could have something to put into their show reels, and I think we did a pretty good job of it. If we'd thrown a few more years at it, it's possible we could have done an even better job of certain story issues, but it's debatable as to how much more value we would have gotten out of the film for spending those extra years on it. So at some point you've got to kind of put a line in the sand and say it's got to be finished. So I think for the artists involved, that's a plus, because it means that everybody has something to show for their work. If anything, it's only me that suffers, because I have to listen to people if they complain that they don't like everything about the story. But I did the best I could with the resources I had. There are certain things I would have liked to have done differently, but I'm quite pleased with the results, and considering we didn't have any form of budget to work with, I think we did a really good job, and everybody involved did a really, really good job. So thank you very much.